Hello Facebook, it's Sarah Southgate, your perimenopausal naturopath. Happy Saturday. I'm back, I'm live, and I am talking about perimenopause, cortisol and orgasms and the link that you need to know between those three things. So before I do, let me remind you who I am. For those of you who kind of been watching what I'm doing but actually don't know what I do, hello. I am Sarah Southgate. I'm a naturopath, a herbalist, a kinesiologist, a coach and a mentor, and I have been doing this since 2003. I built my practice back in London back then, working with women in menopause, and that was before the term perimenopause had even been coined. I've done a lot of work with women and their hormones and chronic health conditions. So I know the power of food and herbal medicine and natural remedies on your health. So perimenopause, cortisol, and orgasms. What do you need to know? Well, perimenopause is that natural decline of hormones that happens in women from age 35, but really mostly from mid-40s. And one of the big hormones in perimenopause that doesn't hit the headlines is cortisol. We usually hear about estrogen and progesterone and the effects of their decline on our bodies. We don't really hear how cortisol, stress hormone, is involved in perimenopause, and it's so important that we do know. Because we can influence cortisol, we can regulate our stress levels, and there are several ways that we can do that. So the reason why it's so important that you are able to reduce your stress levels, because perimenopause is inherently a stressful life stage, not just because your hormones are changing, but because, you know, when you're hitting your mid to late 40s, you've generally got a big job, you've got possibly teenagers in the house. Now they produce a lot of cortisol. Hello Liz, how are you? So, you know, you've got responsibilities, you might have elderly parents with you as well. So when you are in this life stage that is perimenopause, we generally have a lot on our plate. And that means we have a lot of cortisol to cope with it. Now, cortisol is that key hormonal responder in times of stress, right? It comes from, when there's a stressful event, your adrenal glands pour out cortisol into your body. And that's great. It's a survival mechanism, and it is a survival mechanism from when we were cave women. When the tiger came into our cave, we secreted loads of cortisol. All our resources were diverted to our muscles. We were ready to fight that tiger and kill it. And we don't have tigers anymore. We have teenagers and mortgages and, broken cars and elderly parents and all of those things that I've named. And, your stress response is not something you switch on voluntarily. It happens to you. You don't control your stress response. But where your stress response does control you and the way that you feel. It not over can put you into overwhelm. It also almost steals your estrogen and your progesterone. Hey, Lucia. So if you have got high cortisol, that is robbing your body of your sex hormones, which is making your perimenopause harder because your sex hormones are dropping more quickly and in bigger drops. Okay, so we really want our cortisol to be low. That means we cope better with those natural hormonal declines that happen in this life stage. So the other things that cortisol does, it's a triple whammy. So cortisol is a survival hormone, as I said. So part of surviving as a cave woman was storing fat, right? So if you can store fat, you can survive when the hunt fails, or you can survive through the cold winter. So cortisol makes you store more fat, and especially around the middle. We don't like that. We don't like that. And that is one of the reasons why, those old weight loss strategies that used to work, they don't work anymore, because of the hormonal changes that are happening in your body, but also your perennially high level of cortisol. Cortisol also increases your appetite. That's another cavewoman survival strategy. Yeah, to survive, we need to eat more, and then we need to store more fat. So yeah, and the last thing that the triple whammy of cortisol does is it slows down your metabolism, which means you burn your fuel more slowly, and then you put on more weight. Ah, hello, Louise. Yeah, the title got your attention while making your dinner. Well, I am talking about perimenopause, cortisol, and orgasm. So, yeah, I thought it might catch your attention. So cortisol is almost always too high and dysregulated. Yeah. When I learned about cortisol back in naturopathic college, I learned that cortisol is the hormone that makes everything else worse. Okay, it makes your perimenopause worse. If you're living with a chronic health condition, it makes that worse. If you are anxious, it makes that worse. So cortisol, the hormone that makes everything else worse, and the hormone that is almost always too high and dysregulated. One of the things that many people don't know about cortisol is the link with orgasm, and I'm going to get to that in a moment. But most people don't know that if you're eating the standard Western diet, so that is a diet including fast carbs, white rice, white pasta, lots of potato, even sweet potato, those kinds of things, is that is causing your body to secrete additional unwarranted cortisol just to get through the day. And that is because you are eating, so you're eating those fast carbs, which make your fuel levels go very high, and then your body gets rid of the fuel, it uses it up, and you crash. And when your blood sugar crashes, it means you have no fuel left. So if you were a car, you would stop driving, but you're not a car. You're a perimenopausal woman, and you are doing all the things that you do. So you need to keep functioning. And the way our body keeps us functioning when we have no fuel is through adrenaline. Stress hormone, cortisol, stress hormone, right? So when your fuel is going up and down, that is causing energy fluctuations, mood fluctuations, irritability, anxiety, because of the adrenaline production. Okay, so when you are going through your day, if you're eating in this way, then instead of, your baseline level of adrenaline being here, actually it's here already. And you haven't even put on work and kids and elderly parents and all the rest of it. And actually, if you were only to change the way that you ate so that you didn't produce adrenaline through the day, it's perfectly possible, then right, you could keep your head above water with your stress levels. Okay, so most people don't know that the way you eat affects your stress levels. Okay, it's so important, it's absolutely fundamental to getting a handle on perimenopause and the way that you feel. So carbs, fast carbs, and the way we eat can make us produce more adrenaline. And now I'm going to get to the connection between cortisol and orgasms. Okay, when you have an orgasm, you secrete oxytocin. It's the love hormone. Yeah, it's the hormone of bonding. Most of us really associate oxytocin with childbirth and breastfeeding, but actually, in perimenopause, we're usually through that phase of life, and we secrete oxytocin when we do things that make us feel good. So stroking a pet can make you secrete oxytocin. Laughing can make you secrete oxytocin. Having a cuddle can make you secrete oxytocin. And of course, having an orgasm can make you secrete oxytocin. And oxytocin is the arch enemy of cortisol. So the more oxytocin you have in your system, the less cortisol you have in your system. So remember, cortisol has a direct effect on your appetite, on your fat storage, on your overwhelm, on your anxiety levels, and the way you feel in your life. So when you're in perimenopause, cortisol tends to be high. Cortisol is the hormone that makes everything else worse. It's almost always too high and dysregulated. And one of the most fun ways to reduce cortisol is through secreting oxytocin. And you know how to do that. You can go and have an orgasm and combat your stress. Let me know what you think. Bye for now.